Mexico will cancel its partially constructed new airport.
Welcome to Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English language learners. Listen now and read the transcript online at plainenglish.com. Now, here's Jeff, your host for today's episode.
It hasn't taken long for Mexico's new president to make a splash on the world stage, though not necessarily the splash that the world stage was hoping to see. He has canceled the new airport under construction in the capital, Mexico City. Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Plain English, a podcast about current events for all of you who are learning English. As you can hear, we go just a little bit slower than normal speed so you can understand every word. I'm Jeff. The producer of the show is JR, and this is episode number 101 of Plain English. That means you can find the full transcript of today's program online at plainenglish.com/101. Between the slower audio, the transcripts, and especially the translations on the website, there's no excuse for not understanding the program. So check out the transcripts if you need a little extra help. plainenglish.com/101. And if you're interested, we have a nice email community here at Plain English. With every episode, I send out a summary of the day's topic, an additional vocabulary word for you to practice, and some links to English articles about the main topic. If that is of interest to you, check out plainenglish.com/mail. Mexico will abandon a partially built new airport for its capital city after a bizarre, unofficial vote held by President-elect Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. AMLO, as he is known, has not even taken office yet, but in a strange move, his inner circle of advisors organized an unofficial vote that determined the fate of the country's largest infrastructure project. The X-shaped airport, designed by the famous British architect Norman Foster, is under construction in an area called Texcoco, north of the city. The project's budget was $15 billion, and the airport, if completed, would have been the third biggest in the world. The current airport is at capacity and cannot take on additional flights. The business community in Mexico urged the government to expand air capacity to further boost the economy. The new airport broke ground in 2016 and was scheduled to open in phases between 2020 and 2065. It was to be the biggest infrastructure project in Mexico in over 100 years, and it was one of the signature achievements of outgoing President Enrique Peña Nieto. But it is likely to be no more. The incoming president campaigned hard against the airport, saying that it was riddled with corruption and would damage the environment. He said that the government had no business spending so much money on an airport when there were more pressing priorities such as poverty, to deal with in the country. There are other objections. The airport was designed to accommodate 120 million passengers, more than any other airport in the world today, but it would have interrupted the flight pattern of 100,000 migratory birds. It would have required draining a wetland, and that may have caused worse flooding in the eastern part of Mexico City, which already suffers from bad flooding. And its costs have ballooned from an estimated $8 billion when the project was announced to $15 billion at its most recent estimate. Over 2/3 of Mexicans have never been on a plane, so they would not have seen an immediate benefit. And the existing government's planning process, well, that left much to be desired. That means it wasn't an ideal process. They were not transparent about the costs or the potential environmental impact. Many people suspected that the country's business elite got an inside deal and inflated the costs, which would eventually be paid by ordinary Mexicans. So the government's process for building the airport was not exactly a model of good government, but the vote to cancel it was downright strange. Here's why I say it's bizarre. First of all, AMLO isn't even in office yet. Second, the vote was organized by his inner circle of advisors, not by any government electoral agency. The polling places didn't even cover the whole country, or even the whole area that would be affected. They set up polling places in 500 towns, which only served about 80% of the country's population. They printed 1 million ballots. Great, except that Mexico has 90 million registered voters. Since the vote wasn't organized by the government, it wasn't clear how the organizers would know who was even allowed to vote. And AMLO's own political party supervised the balloting. To nobody's surprise, the result reflected AMLO's own views in the campaign. When observers discovered people were voting more than once due to technical problems with the voting machines, the organizers said, the double counting didn't affect the outcome. In announcing the vote results, AMLO said that it was the end of the ties between economic and political power. Oh dear. The world's investment community looked on with concern at what happened. International investors lent the Mexican government $6 billion to construct the new airport. They now wonder if they will ever be paid back. People are asking now whether the Mexican government can be counted on to keep its word. Some people might not care as much about what international investors think about the politics of Mexico, but any time a government wants to do a big project, it has to borrow money from somewhere, and that somewhere is from foreign investors. Without a good reputation in international markets, the cost to borrow money for big projects can be high, sometimes impossibly high. The world's lenders are now taking a second look at Mexico's reputation. The big new airport may be canceled, but something needs to be done. The existing airport is bursting at the seams. It handles 50% more passengers than it was designed to do. The number of passengers going through the airport is increasing 10% a year. There is no space to expand the existing airport. AMLO's alternative is to repurpose a military base near the existing airport. So instead of having one large airport, Mexico City will have two airports close to each other, but not connected. The combined capacity of those two airports will be limited because they are so close. Planes serving one airport will have to avoid crashing into the planes serving the other airport. Whoa. Sounds like the business community might be in for some turbulence in Mexico with the new president. Time to say hi to some listeners. Henrique is a police officer from the state of Espírito Santo in Brazil. He's already told all his friends about plain English, so he is a model citizen, model listener. He connected with us on Facebook a couple of weeks back. I got a bunch of great emails over the last week. I check all the emails. I write back to everyone. So here are a few people who wrote over the last few weeks. Stefano, an English student from Sardinia, Italy. Maya from Mexico City. Sofia from Honduras. Lucas in Paraná, Brazil. And finally, Matthew from Slovakia. Matthew is 13 years old. Can you believe that? Not only listening to a podcast in English at age 13, but following all these grown-up topics. Matthew, you are off to a great start. I'm jealous that you are so advanced at your second language at such a young age. Keep up the good work. And of course, send an email. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we can be reached at jr@plainenglish.com and Jeff, Jeff, at plainenglish.com. And of course, on Facebook and Twitter under the username Plain English Pod. By the way, can I make a request? So many of you send me emails and you apologize for your English. You write and you say, sorry for my English, I'm still learning. Or, sorry, my English is no good. Enough already. No apologies. Not here, not anywhere. Nobody needs to be embarrassed about learning and being at a different stage in the process. Just get out there and speak and write, and don't be shy and don't be embarrassed, least of all here among your plain English friends, okay? Now, on to today's English phrase, a really good one, bursting at the seams. A seam is when you sew two pieces of fabric together. That part where they meet, that's the seam. Look at your shirt, probably around your shoulder, where your sleeve meets the main part of your shirt. You probably have a seam there, where two pieces of fabric come together. And bursting means like exploding. So this phrase, bursting at the seams, means something is expanding so fast, it doesn't fit in its container anymore. The airport in Mexico City is bursting at the seams. It carries 50% more passengers than it was designed to carry. They just don't have any more room for additional planes and more passengers want to come every year. It's bursting at the seams. It cannot contain any more passengers. When I was a kid, the middle school I went to was bursting at the seams. In the United States, you go to middle school when you're about 10 or 11 until you're about 13, 14 years old. So that middle school was bursting at the seams. There were too many students crowded into the classrooms. They finally brought in these temporary trailers that we used for classrooms. And then in my final year, they completed an addition to the building. But before the addition, our school was bursting at the seams. It could not take any more kids, and the addition opened up just in time. How about the path to Machu Picchu? We talked about that a few episodes ago when we discussed the issue of over-tourism. I think we said there were triple the number of visitors that year than there were about 10 years ago. There are too many people on those paths, and it's just getting too crowded. It's bursting at the seams. Remember what Venice does? They just close the gates to the historic center when it's bursting at the seams. They don't let anyone else in. All right, that's all for today. Thanks for being with us on episode 101. A lot of you have tried out Audible, and I hope you're liking it so far. Remember, all Plain English listeners can get a free audiobook to practice your listening by visiting plainenglish.com/book, B-O-O-K, and you will see all the details of the offer there. Basically, if you sign up for a free trial membership, you get your pick of any audiobook for free, which you can keep forever, even if you cancel your membership before you have to pay. It's not a bad way to try something new if you're up for a challenge. All the details are at plainenglish.com/book. JR and I will be right back here next week, starting on Monday, as always. Just hit follow in Spotify or subscribe in your favorite podcast app, and you'll get all the latest episodes delivered automatically to your phone. Not a bad deal, right? And it's always free every Monday and Thursday. Have a great weekend, and we will be back together in just a couple of days. So long.